Hi there! In the previous video, we covered one way of using H5P's branching scenario. In this video, we will cover another example with giving options such as correct, incorrect, and not the best response. Before we start our tutorial, I'd like to give some theoretical information on what is scenario-based learning, when and why do we need it, and how to create your own scenario. So let's start from what is scenario-based learning. Imagine you are learning something new, like how to become a detective. Instead of just reading a book or listening to lectures, you are put in a thrilling detective story where you have to solve a mysterious case. This approach is called scenario-based learning, or shortly SBL. In SBL, you are not just a passive observer, you actively participate in the learning process. The story unfolds and you face various challenges just like a real detective would. This helps you to practice and apply your knowledge, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills in a safe and practical way. The scenarios you encounter are like puzzles or problems to solve, and they reflect the situations you might encounter in the real world. As you work through the story, you make decisions based on what you've learned so far. These decisions lead to consequences, just like in the real world, and feedback helps you to understand the consequences of your own choice and learn from your mistakes. The beauty of SBL is that it is designed to make learning feel natural and relevant. Instead of studying in a disconnected manner, you are placed in a context where the knowledge is valuable and applicable. This is because SBL is built on the idea that the learning is the best when it happens within the situation where you'll use your knowledge. To create a scenario-based learning, as an educator, you first need to identify the learning outcomes. For example, what you want your students to achieve at the end of the scenario. Work backwards from the learning outcomes to create a situation that will lead to this learning. If you don't know what backward design is, you can check out one of my previous videos. For example, I want my learners to be able to produce their own online course design draft through application of knowledge and skills based on instructional design principles. Next, we need to create a scenario. This means that we need to set the scene for the situation. The situation should mimic what happens in real life. Also, the decisions and the consequences should be the ones that are most likely to happen in the real world. On the screen, you can see the text that introduces learners to their task. After we have identified our learning outcomes and set the scene, we start mapping the branching logic. We should determine the best and the worst outcomes of the situation. Here you can arrange one correct pass or multiple. The simplest one is to keep one correct response. To make it visually understandable, I will show you my example. I made visualization in Microsoft Visio. As you can see, I have 3 possible responses and I color-coded them as correct, incorrect, and not the best response. I also decided to give immediate feedback, explaining why their choice is correct or not. Also, in my personal opinion, even if students respond correctly, it is nice to give feedback mentioning why they're right. Before building the activity, you should collect and prepare all the materials you are going to use, such as images, videos, illustration, and etc. Once all previously mentioned activities are done, you can start building your activity. There are many tools you can use, but in this video we are going to use H5P's branching scenario. We will access from h5p.org. I'll log in. I'll go to try out H5P. Then I'll choose branching scenario. I'll first put the text here and then add my instruction. And then text and done. Now I'll add my first branching question. I'll add as number 1 so it will be clear for me the sequence when I will be using advanced branching options. Because I have 3 responses, I also add alternative 1 and done. The first question is done, and what I'm going to do right now is I'll continue the next branch after the correct response. So for example, in the question 1, the correct response is the answer 2. What I'm gonna do is I'll add branching scenario here, and I'll put question 2. Next, I again copy and paste responses and done. So next, I'll again put the next question in the response 2 and done. I'll finish with the 3 questions that are left, and once I'm done, we will move forward. I'm done with all the correct responses. So what I'm going to do right now is I'll give the feedback to correct and not the best responses, and with the incorrect one we're gonna do later. So first I'll go to my question. So you can either double click on the setting part and choose edit question or alternatives. So the first was the incorrect response. I'll leave it like that, and here I'll go next. As a feedback title, I'll put great job and the feedback text. Then here I'll also add branching option, jump to another one, and that will be the second question, feedback text, and done. So we can check right now how it will behave. We'll go to preview, start the course. This part, because this is not the course, we can change, and I'll show you later on how we can change that. So we click on the start the course, instruction, okay. So we have the correct response. We'll click here. Good, we have feedback. We'll proceed with the next question. Let's check again with the next one. Almost there. Okay. We also have our feedback, and we'll move to the next question. Back to edit. We will go to the second question and do the same steps. So I know that my correct response is the second one here. Good job. And the third one, jump to another branch, and we'll choose the third question. Almost there, and the text. So we will continue like this until we are done with all 6 questions. So I'm done with my correct and not the best responses. I followed those steps, and in the last scene, what I did instead of jumping to the next stage is that I put the custom and scenario, and this we will cover later on. So meanwhile I'll just leave it like that. And the next will go on incorrect response. In my Visio document, you can see that when student responds incorrectly, they have to go back to the first question, so they don't move to the next one. So the one drawback of a branching scenario is that it doesn't allow to restart the first question when you respond incorrectly, but instead it makes you to restart the whole scenario since the beginning. But what I want is to come here. I'll show you how it looks like. So when we double click and open the first incorrect response, we go to branching options. And here, when we choose jump to another branch, we see either the first text or the next questions. But because a learner responded incorrectly to the question, we don't want them to move. We want them to work on their mistake. So this can be solved as following. I'll make it back, done. I'll add a text, and title I'll just put 0. In the text I decided to put I doubt your response, and then we'll go to advanced branching options. Here we'll make jump to another branch, and then we'll select the first question, and as a feedback title we'll put try again, and then here we can put the try the text, and done. So now we can preview. Let's go, and I respond incorrectly, and I get the response I doubt your response. And then when we proceed, we see feedback, and then we proceed again, and we have the same first question. Back to edit, and we'll use this logic in the rest of the wrong responses. Another thing what we can do is, instead of adding text back and forth, I'll just copy it and then paste, and I'll put this text here. I'll just change the feedback text. Done. Okay, moving. If you see a red flag like this, it means that the game is finished. And when you see icons like this, it means that it will either go further or go to another scenario. We already copied this. I again just paste. Text is here. I put it to the empty one. Next, to proceed, jump to another branch, again the third question, and done. So I'll just copy and paste like this until I finish with the question number 6. Okay, so I'm done. I finished all of my questions, and then now I want to preview. So my idea now is to go through all the incorrect responses to see if everything is behaving properly. Okay. Okay. And I'll just go to the last question. So instead of having feedback at the end, we can modify end scene, and for that we will go back to edit. So we go here, the start screen. Title of the scenario is becoming an e-learning designer. Then to the detail, I add the introduction text. I won't add the image at this stage, and for the end screen I'll just add the congratulations, and the text will be this. We'll move next, and instead of having course title or starting the course, we can change it to scenario. So for that we'll go to translations, start the course, we change the course to scenario, proceed to save, and we save this whole scenario. Okay, so now what we see is instead of course we have scenario, we have the title of our scenario and the welcoming text. Let's finish until the end to see what is gonna be. Okay, and we have the finishing scene. So that's it, we are done with creating our branching scenario. I just want to know that SBL can be time consuming, but the end product pays off for all the time you dedicate to develop a scenario based learning. If this video was useful, don't forget to press like button and subscribe to the channel, and see you in future videos.